Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mr OAU and it's good to see you back here again. So for today's video, yes, we're just going to continue on with our analysis of visual texts. But yes, before I go any further, just the ongoing reminder, this video is going to be one take, and that's solely because I'm too lazy to edit the videos myself and I'm too poor to hire an editor. So if you could help me out by subscribing and by liking the videos, even by commenting, that would be awesome. But yes, just like I said before, for today's lesson or slash video, we're just going to continue on with analyzing visual texts. I've already made 2 videos on analyzing visual texts, and just like in those 2 videos, in this lesson today, I will be introducing another new visual technique to you all. I will examine this visual technique in depth so that you can feel confident analyzing it when you're looking at future visual texts. Or I should say when you're looking at visual texts in the future. Okay, so let's get started. So just like in all my other videos, I would like to start off this lesson by showing you all a painting or a visual text or a photograph or whatever that I like. In this case, this painting is another painting done by one of my favorite painters, Edward Hopper. I highly suggest you all to check him out. And yeah, I really like this painting because I think it captures the emotion of anxiety extremely well. Yeah. If you have a look at the female character who's leaning against the wall, her body language, every single aspect of her body language screams uncomfortability and anxiety. She's got her arm crossed over her stomach, showing that she's a bit closed off. She's got her hand touching her face, which is a common gesture that we perform when we are worried. It's as if we're trying to comfort ourselves by rubbing our face. She's looking downwards and she's also leaning against the wall, which are also quite common symptoms for when you're feeling apprehensive. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that painting with you all first, and like in all my other videos, if you do know the name of the painting or the painter, please leave a comment below. But yeah, to continue our discussion on body language, surprise, surprise, our lesson today will also be on body language. So this will be the visual technique that I'll be introducing to you all. So in terms of the lesson structure, it's not going to be anything new. There's going to be 4 parts to this lesson. I'm going to define what body language is, which should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to look at some examples, look at some useful tips. So that section there will most likely be the most helpful to you because you can apply these useful tips in your own responses. And then we're going to use body language in an actual response. Okay. So, in terms of the definition of body language, if you don't know already, or if you can't use your common sense, yeah, body language just refers to what a character is doing with their body. Yeah. Usually, when you're talking about body language, you will be talking about a person in an image. I guess you could talk about animals and things like that, but you need a body, right, in order for you to talk about their body language, if that makes sense. Yeah, so usually when you're talking about body language, you'll be referring to a person that's present in a visual text. So essentially what that means is if you do get a visual image that contains a person in it, then you'll most likely be able to say something about their body language. Yeah, well, that's another way of looking at it. So when you're analyzing body language, you can kind of vaguely divide body language into 4 categories. At least that's just how I've grown to understood it, how I've been taught. So you can look at someone's posture, right? So how are they standing? How are they sitting? You can look at someone's stance. Right? So stance more so focuses on how someone's, I guess you could say, framing their bodies to the outside world. Yeah. That's probably not the best definition, but just bear with me. I'll explain that more in detail later on. In terms of gestures, yeah, you're mainly referring to hand gestures, maybe even gestures related to the legs. Yeah, but mainly with gestures, it's talking about the hands. And then we can look at pose as well as the fourth category. Um, Realistically speaking, there are probably more categories, but I just want you to remember these four for now. And really, that's all. These four categories will be enough. Yeah, if you can remember these four categories when you're looking at body language, this will serve you well all the way until year 12 when you finish. Yeah, so let's have a look at an example. So in terms of body language, uh, like I said before, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty straightforward. So hopefully this lesson is just a kind of reviser, a reminder that body language is in fact a visual technique that you can analyze. So let's have a look at this painting. So first of all, you can pause the video if you'd like, yeah, and have a go yourself. Think about um, how body language is used in this visual text and what meaning is created by the body language. Yeah, so you can pause the video now to see if you can write something down, and then unpause it, and then we can go through it together. Okay, so by now, I'm going to assume that you have paused the video and written something down yourself, and now we can go through it together. Okay, so in terms of this visual image, I would say um, the character that stands out the most is the person, the old man holding the door. Yeah, and his body language, I would say, also is the most prominent. That's because he's centered in the image, yeah, which is another technique that we will talk about later on. But centering is quite important as well. But anyways, going back to the old man's body language, he's obviously gesturing with his hands, right, or his hand, or his arm, you could say. And in particular, the gesture is he's pointing his index finger outside of his home. Yeah, and usually, right, unless you're a psychopath or you haven't met anyone yeah, blah, 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 you should be able to know that this gesture of him pointing outside, or if anyone pointing their finger outside, it means that it's that well, what's going on? Yeah, it means that they're signaling to the person that they should get out. You get out of their house, get out of their restaurant, get out of the class. Yeah, so the gesturing with the finger, yeah, outside, it's quite a universal body language that we should all be quite familiar with. Yeah, um, yeah, I guess which brings me to an interesting topic. Sometimes body language can mean different things. For example, I believe the thumbs up is quite offensive in some cultures, but in Western cultures, the thumbs up means something positive. But I wouldn't be too concerned, I would say, because you're doing the exam in Australia, in a Western country, then just go by um, how Western people or what Western people associate with certain um, body languages, which you should already be familiar with. Yeah, so don't worry about what a certain body language might mean in another culture. That shouldn't really matter. Yeah, for your exams at least. Okay. So before I ramble on even more, let's jump back into it. So this is example 2. So in this case, what you get is you have a male character and he has both his arms outstretched up in the air. All right. So have a think. What meaning is created by this? I'm not going to pause. I'll probably won't ask you to pause this video because it's pretty self-explanatory. I would say. You would Most people would only put their hands up in the air if they are overjoyed or extremely happy. Yeah, you don't really see people who are sad or scared with both hands in the air. You know, that just doesn't really happen. Yeah, so I guess it does take a bit of common sense as well, or a bit of personal experience with social interactions, um, for you to know that if someone have both of their hands in the air, that means happiness. Yeah, most of us should know this, and I do hope that you know it too. I feel like when it comes to understanding body language, it's quite intuitive. It's quite built in and hardwired within us from birth. So should be okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is probably the most important part of the lesson, I would say. these are some useful tips that you can take away from body language. I really only have one tip, so I guess yeah. Hopefully that this one tip will elevate your responses. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. So, in terms of analyzing body language, the number one thing that I don't like to see is when a student doesn't describe what the body language is, and they just say this body language shows that she is tired, or this body language shows that she is angry, but you're not really describing the body language, right? If she's tired, is she slouching in a chair? Is she rubbing her eyes? You have to describe the body language before you can infer something from it. Yeah. So in terms of describing body language, it might not be as natural because you don't really have to do that in your normal life. So, with that being said, I have included a list of the common types of body languages and how you can describe them in that link below. I did not make this link, or I did not make the contents on this website, so kudos to the person who did. But I highly suggest you all to click onto that link and look at the different types of body languages, yeah, and the corresponding emotions associated with that body language. Yeah, so if you're angry, you might be holding up your fist. If you're sad, you might be digging your head into your arm. Yeah, familiarize yourself with the different types of body language and the emotions that they are meant to convey. Yeah, so just to reiterate, please make sure that you specify the type of body language that is actually being performed by the character. Yeah, describe their body language before you infer anything from it. Okay, that's probably the most useful tip that I can give you about body language, so please do that. Okay, so with all that being said, now let's apply everything that we've learned in this lesson to actually constructing a response. So I do suggest you to pause this video now and have a go yourself. So have a read of the question and then have a look at the visual text and see what you can come up with. So pause the video, maybe give yourself 5-10 minutes, see if you can write something up, and then we can go through it together. Okay, so by now, I will assume that you have written something yourself, and now I will go through it together with you. So, what does text P suggest about the relationship between the two characters? Yeah. Immediately when I see this image, I think, both of them have their hands crossed or their arms crossed, which usually means that they don't feel exactly comfortable with each other. Usually, when you cross your arms in front of you, it's a defense mechanism. It's when you're trying to protect yourself in situations where you feel anxious. Yeah, so these two people might be strangers. Yeah, they might not know each other. That's why they've got their defenses up. They're also looking away from each other. They're facing away. Their feet and their legs are pointing away from each other, and that usually means that it either means that they are strangers or it means that they don't really like each other. Yeah, when you point your feet away from someone, it usually shows a lack of affection. Yeah, and I only know that because I've studied that website below, above, or not below, before that I linked, and I've used my common sense really. Yeah. Okay, so this is the answer. Yeah. So please pause the video since there are a lot of information on this slide. Have a read of the information first, and then we can go through it together. Okay, so by now, I will assume that you have read the response, and now let's go through it together. So just as a reminder, the question was, what does text P suggest about the relationship between the two characters? And then, like I discussed before in my initial analysis, it shows that the two monkeys, the two characters, do not share an intimate relationship. Yeah. So in terms of body language, so be specific about the technique. The crossed arms of both monkeys, coupled with the fact that they are facing away from each other, you can see how I'm describing their body language here. I'm not just saying their body language shows this. I'm describing specifically what their body language is before I say that this suggests that they're both unwilling to open up to each other about their respective thoughts and feelings. Yeah. This refusal to establish an open line of communication reinforces their shallow connection with each other and inability to become closer as friends. Yeah, so in this response, I have also followed PETAL, which is something that I highly recommend you all to do. PETAL is by far, in my opinion, the best acronym that you can follow in terms of structuring your responses. So start off with your point, then your evidence and your technique, and then your analysis. Yeah, I will do another video on PETAL another time, but today, just for this lesson, it will be centered on body language. And just to reiterate the main points, body language should be pretty self-explanatory. Usually when you see a character, a human character or a person in a visual text, usually there's always something that you can say about their body language. And if you do want to analyze the body language of a character, please make sure that you describe their body language before you infer any meaning from it. Yeah. If you only remember one thing from today's lesson, make sure you do describe the person's body language before you infer any meaning from it. Okay, so that concludes the third lesson in this series of videos about visual texts. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.